so much. Thank you all for being here. This is our 11th stop on the Move Her Mind event series, and I am the co-host, Megan, with Believe in the Run. I also just want to shout out to all of you in the front row here, because every time we go somewhere, no one sits in the front. So thank you all for showing up.
I was actually just going to say that too. I was like, there's only 2 empty front row seats, and usually there's the full empty. I don't know if they think there's like a splash zone involved. I don't know, but thank you guys. Full house. Thank you for all being here tonight. So, as Brandy was telling us, the whole premise of this Move Her Mind tour event series, I'm not supposed to say tour, that the Megs have been going on for this summer. You are our 11th stop. It all started with a global commissioned research study that ASICS did with a researcher down out of Tennessee. And they were looking at the gender gap in movement and why women aren't moving as much as they want to move. They had done some preliminary research to show that most women aren't moving their bodies as much as they want. So they were doing tons of research all over the United States and some other countries. And the interesting part to me was they surveyed women to find out why. They got these top tier 2 or 3 things of why women aren't moving their body as much as they want. And then they asked the men, why aren't women moving their bodies as much as they want? And it was not the same thing. It was not even close to the same thing. It was very image-centric from the men, and it was very time-centric from the women. So lots of really cool stuff came out of this study. And as we were chatting with ASICS, thinking about what fun stuff we could do this summer, we talked about, let's bring some different experts from all around the United States to talk a little bit more and help bridge that gap and provide some motivation and provide some education for us to help us move our bodies in the way that we want to move our bodies. And then also, I think most of us here, most of us are sweaty from that run we just went on, are moving our bodies more than maybe some of our female counterparts or friends or family members are. So I always encourage people to make sure that we share this knowledge and help support other women in our lives to be able to move their bodies in a way that they find fulfilling, which may or may not be running. Sounds like blasphemy to us, I know, but really just supporting each other in that. So we are excited to be here to continue our conversation to help support women in their movement journeys. And we have a very special guest tonight, Allie Caminiti. I think I said it right. I practiced a few times. And so we will let Allie introduce herself and tell us a little bit about you and anything you want us to know.
Sure. My name's Allie. I am a running coach and an art therapist, and I'm also an EMDR therapist. Now I primarily coach running, and I also coach mental endurance courses as part of my run coaching. I'm a mom. I moved to Atlanta 2 years ago. From California, so the weather is like really, it's been an adjustment for sure. I'm part of the Rabbit Elite Trail Team, and I'm going to be going to the Alps in a week to do CCC. It's part of UTMB.
So much good stuff. But let's start with art therapy. Can you tell us how you got into that field and what it is?
Yes, I really appreciate that question. So as a kid, art was like my sort of outlet. It was what I was good at. It was really the only thing that I would allow attention from. I did not like to be looked at. I did not like attention as a kid. But making stuff was this external thing that could be looked at and took the attention away from me. So I got pretty good at it. And I went to college and studied art. And then I became an art therapist. I went to grad school for art therapy after that. And basically, art therapy is a form of psychotherapy that utilizes the creative process to, I like to say, access inaccessible material or unconscious material, things that we're not yet aware of. And that's through both the process and the product, and looking at your art afterwards and also analyzing the process of making things. And yeah, it's kind of awesome. If you haven't had any experience with it in the past, you should definitely check it out.
Coming from a hospital background, my former life, we loved working with the art therapists, and we were really blessed to have, I think, 2 or 3 of them. Probably needed a lot more, especially in the children's hospital. But yeah, it's really cool. That's where I learned about it more. Did you guys know at all about art therapy? 50-50 out there? Yeah, it's pretty cool. Definitely.
Yeah. I worked in a hospital setting as well, inpatient psych, and then I also worked in a prison, a male prison for 6 years in California. It was a psych unit in a prison, so it was very challenging and a lot of trauma and a lot of stuff that people keep repressed comes out in artwork, things that we're not typically aware of, or we kind of hide from ourselves, comes out in our art. So yeah, it's definitely necessary for people who have gone through things, you know.
And that's quite the spectrum, children to incarcerated males. So, I mean, I think she's got us all covered mentally here. You know, any question we got, she's probably handled it. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about when running entered your life and kind of how that fulfills different parts of life.
Yeah. So it started out as something that like I was forced to do. When I was in middle school, my parents basically told me that I needed to do 3 sports because they weren't going to get after school care for me. So I needed to do something and like stay there. But like I was really tiny, and that's like partly why I didn't like to be looked at as a kid, because especially with adults, like when I was 10 and under, adults would look at me and say, "Oh, how old are you? No, you can't be right. Like, you're so tiny." Like, essentially, like putting me in a box. So I really felt like something was wrong with me when I was a small kid. But when I ran, it was like the like playing field was evened out. Like, it didn't actually matter how big I was. So it was nice to be a part of something like the track team where like my body was actually like useful in like the way that I saw it was supposed to be, instead of being like looked at as defective or like something is wrong with me or like I'm not good enough in some way. So running was like the first space where I really felt like I could like contribute to society or like my community in a positive way.
So what age did you start the track team then?
7th grade. Yeah. We didn't have sports like before that, unless you did like tennis or like softball. And when I was on a softball team, I was literally like out in the outfield, like making flower bracelets, like not trying to get hit with the ball, like not part of it at all. I was not athletic. But then I started playing field hockey too, and you're a field hockey player as well, right? And I had to be fast, otherwise I was just gonna get pummeled, you know? So that's how running started for me.
And I started running because if I ran fast enough, I could make varsity as a freshman on the field hockey team. So I was like, I better run. You better run real fast so that you get to play there. So yeah, I get it.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned you're going to be racing CCC in next week?
The 29th.
Okay.
Yeah. August 29th.
So obviously you've done quite a bit of running. That's 100K. When we were out on the run, you mentioned 100-miler-ish. It was a 24-hour run.
Yeah.
But all that to say, obviously you've gotten very into running. At one point you broke 3 hours. So when did like you go all in on running?
Yeah. Not until like 2018, and this was like a real like mental journey for me, because I didn't run for many years after I played field hockey and ran college my freshman year of college, and then I what did I just say? I ran track and played field hockey my freshman year of college, and then I quit everything after that. And I was like really not into anything. I got in a really bad relationship. It kind of like suffocated me, and so bad. I was like really depressed, and right now I'm 105 pounds. I was like 85 pounds. Like it was and I could not see like what was going on with me. It was like real dysmorphia. There was a point, I was an art major, and there was a point where I painted a self-portrait for one of my senior thesis classes. And my philosophy professor looked at it and was like, you know that you're, like so graciously, he was like, you know that you're a lot smaller in real life than you are in this painting. And I was like, so confused. I wasn't even able to process what he was saying or like accept that. And then I had another painting that I made where it was like our senior thesis class, and we had this artist come in, Joan Snyder. I don't know if anybody knows who Joan Snyder is. She won a MacArthur Fellowship, so she's like a genius. And she came and analyzed our work or critiqued it, and she looked at this one painting and said, "Who made that?" And it was me. And I said, "Oh, I did." And it was a painting of my boyfriend. And she said, "Who's in this painting?" And I said, "Oh, it's my boyfriend." And she said, "I think this relationship is over for you." And I was like stunned. But like, to be fair, I had like eliminated his feet and I decapitated him. and, and there was the words above him said "way out," and his body was like in a doorway. And so it's like it's not hard to like grasp that, right? But like again, I had no idea. I was like totally like defended from everything that was happening. And I wasn't running at this point, but like after we broke up, the first thing I wanted to do was go for a run. And it wasn't because I wanted to like run competitively. It was just like I needed to like feel like I was strong again. Like had like a sense of like self-efficacy and like could like exist. And it was really scary. I was like really afraid to even just leave my house and like go for a run and step outside. Just like this fear of being seen and like people witnessing like how broken I felt, you know? And so anyway, I didn't pick up running right after that, but that was like sort of what got me through this like very difficult time. And then like 8 years later, so like all of my 20s basically, I didn't do any physical activity. And then I started like socializing through running. And that's when I started picking it up again. But there was this barrier for me in terms of like being competitive or like trying hard at this thing, because I still had this like little voice inside of my head saying like you're defective, you know, like you're not good enough, like you shouldn't try at this, you know. And so it took a lot of like self work to even be willing to like put myself all in and like really try. And like work hard, you know. And even still, I find myself when I'm overwhelmed or stressed, I like sink back into that place where I pretend like things don't care as much, or like I protect myself from working hard and like trying and putting myself out there. And like as soon as I notice that happening, it's like, no, like this is something that's really important to you, and it's okay to care about stuff, you know. And like they're actually, you're not defective, you know. Like there's actually nothing wrong with you. Yeah.
And I think that's so relatable, because I think we've probably all been in a place where we've been scared to try, especially with our running, right? We're all here, just went for a run. Like we're a little scared to like, what if, right? Like what if I push to this point? Like what does that happen? So knowing now that you've got this mental health background and learning more about like how you actually got into that art therapy was fascinating. So thank you for sharing that. And so at what point did you kind of start to put that all together? Put together the understanding that you had of expressing yourself through art therapy and understanding how that got things out of your mind, and then bringing that into the running space, because we all know how mental running is. So like tell us, how did this kind of merge in your life? And
Yeah, that is such a good question. So art and running are both like movement patterns. Like you're moving, engaging your body when you're making things. And it's the same with running. When you're running, this kind of relates to EMDR also, where you're bilaterally stimulating your brain. You're using both sides of your body. And it's really helpful to like process information and like move through things. So like if you've ever had an experience when you're running where you're like, oh my God, these are the most amazing ideas, or like, or like a rage run, or anytime you're like getting something out and like working through something, that's like you're passing this information back and forth across your brain. And it's like internalizing it in a way that's like more useful for you and not as intrusive. And yeah, so like I was noticing that this was something that was beneficial for me. And when I started improving in my own running, I wanted to be able to help other people too. And at first, I sort of focused on just the running aspect of it. And it became really impossible to tease apart like just the science of running and also like the mental aspect of it, because it's really like they're so intertwined, and like you can't really access like your full potential unless you're willing to like assess yourself and like put yourself into a space where like you have an awareness, and like what are your personal limitations, because it really is like so mental, you know.
Yeah, so when you're out on a training run, or if you're in a race and maybe things aren't going exactly how you hoped, or you're not feeling great, like what are some of the mental tactics that you've sort of built?
That's such a good question. The first thing I think is trying to be patient and just break it down into something that's smaller than like the whole overarching thing, and just take it like one step at a time. I'm honestly thinking about Frozen 2 right now, and like we're honest, like what is the next best step that I can do? And it's like literally that, like breaking it down into like just the exact next thing. Like what do I need now? Like almost like a like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of thing. Like what's the what is necessary for my survival now, instead of thinking about the bigger, more like the higher things that are more about like how am I going to feel about this afterwards. Like that's not really relevant in the moment, like in the race. So trying to keep what's most relevant as the most pressing thing to be focused on.
And then when you're training for a race, like a really long race, let's say 100K, 100 miles, and you know that things are going to come up, like you just know that there's going to be bad moments. Are there things that you do in advance of race day to sort of get yourself mentally prepared for that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's something, if you ever took biology in like high school or whatever, the best prepared or the most successful organism is the best prepared organism. So like you're ready for whatever it is. So like you have to, well, I have to like look through what are the potential like problems that I could encounter and how am I going to resolve them, so that I don't need to think about anything in the moment. It's already thought through. It's already known, like how I'm going to deal with this problem. And like most problems have already come up for other people. Like I'm not like an exception to any kind of rule. Like I'm not going to encounter something new necessarily. So like it should be pretty easy to figure out what are the possibilities that could go wrong.
I think that's great. I always tell people they need multiple levers to be able to pull from, like during a race. Like obviously, nutrition, hydration is mostly the conversation with me with these things. But right, it's like and when something goes wrong in training, and then you realize like, oh, this gel didn't sit well in my stomach. Right? We know that already. We know how to open it at race pace. We know how to consume it. All that kind of stuff. Yes. So of course, now I have to ask, what is your typical favorite fuel when you're out there for 100 miles, or fuels plural?
Yes. That is such a great question. I actually love, I don't even know how to pronounce it, a Mac X. Is that how you pronounce it? It's like,
I think so.
Okay. It's like this Dutch gel, and they have some that have 40 grams of carbs and some that have 30 grams of carbs, and they have 200 milligrams of sodium in them. So I can take this gel without, and I'm not a very salty sweater, so I can like consume sodium through gel rather than having to like drink an electrolyte drink mix. And sometimes I really like just cold water. So yeah, that's my number one right now. Also sometimes Victus. It's a little thick, but it's good for like the beginning of races when I can still like, tolerate things like that.
Do you ever go for real food? Are you a gel girl?
I don't. I'm a gel girl. Yeah, I don't.
So you mentioned you're on the Rabbit Elite team. How do you go from someone who's nervous to leave the house to running 100 miles?
Yeah. Yeah. It was like, the problem is that like this state of mind that I was in was so not who it was not my ideal self, And so like as I got closer to being my ideal self, more challenging things became easier, and it became less fear-inducing for me to try different things or go outside or whatever. Not that I was like agoraphobic. I was just like, people are going to see me and see how like sad I am, like that's sort of what it was like. And initially with running, I needed to run with a group. I needed to like be with other people. I wanted to like not be alone. And now I feel like confident and secure enough in myself that, and not from like a safety perspective, just like doing things by myself, Yeah, so now it's not so hard.
And you mentioned you love running with people. You have a community. How did you find that group of people?
Well, initially, it was through a Fleet Feet in Sacramento. And they it was an amazing group of people. And I was like, wow, you guys just embraced me. Like, you don't even know me. And but nobody knew anybody, So it was like, I think I spent so much time thinking that I was like alone in my experience. And really, we were all experiencing very similar things,
Yeah, I think it's really hard as a beginner runner to walk up to that group and say, hey, I'm here to go for a run. So what was that first day like for you?
Oh my God, yeah. No, I was really lucky because this girl Andrea just came up to me and was basically like, "Want to be my best friend?" kind of thing. Like it was, and she's awesome too, and we became best friends. but but that was like really great. I had like one person who just like saw me, and it was a big shift from when I was a little kid who would cry when someone looked at me for too long to like being able to interact with people and like and be okay as I was.
So coming from your background and all the things you know now, and we can see the things that happened in life that got you to where you are, if you could help someone who maybe has a child in a similar situation as you, or someone who feels like they aren't seen or aren't being seen in the way they want, like, do you have any advice from your professional opinion here of like how to like help in that situation so that somebody didn't have to navigate it quite as rockily as you had to?
Yeah, I think I have a daughter, and I think a lot about how she sees herself in the world. And as an example, we were walking out of a restaurant a couple weeks ago, and this man was walking towards us and looked at her and was like, "Oh, you're so beautiful. You should smile. Smile, girl." And I was like, "You don't have to smile at anyone. Anytime you're told, you don't have to do that. You can smile when you feel like smiling." And when I was a child, I have never, like, my mom sort of put into my mind that it was impolite to not, like, appease an adult who was asking something of me. And so, like, for me, it's instilling in my kid that, like, you're in charge of your feelings. And, like, you don't, like, perform for people.
Yeah, that's really cool. Definitely.
So now you're a coach. How did you get into that? Because I believe you said it stemmed from one of your own goals that you met, breaking 3 hours.
Yes. Yeah. So I wanted to help people. I was like kind of like trying to be useful to my friends at first. And then I felt like there had to be this like qualifying thing that I did in order to feel like confident being a coach. So I was like, I can't do this until I do this. I was like, I need to break 3 hours, and then I'll be like, people will think that I'm trustworthy, or like I know what I'm doing or something. And I had gone through like coaching training, curriculum, whatever, and certifications. And so like technically I could have just like been a running coach, but I like needed to do this first before I felt like I was confident enough to, like I felt like I needed to prove myself first. And then I sort of just like, that was so scary, like putting myself out there and being like, hey, I'm going to do this thing. Like if anyone wants, my services. And then it like worked, and people like reached out, and I was like very bewildered by the whole thing. And now that's like my full-time job, which I'm so happy that things turned around that way, because I don't have to work in a prison anymore. And and also I have so much flexibility with a small child, that it like allows me freedom to run whenever I want, and also I can pick my kid up from school and juggle things over the summertime when they don't have school.
Right. Ooh. So tell us how you integrate the mental health piece and the mental health coaching for running into your running practice, or is it at a totally separate program that you have available? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there are two different ways that I incorporate it. So one is with athletes that I'm training, I put like mental strength exercises in their weekly schedule. So this is really like self-directed. So if they want to put stuff there, then they can like use it as a journal, or like respond to whatever the prompt is. And there's no pressure for them to do that. If they want to do it, they can. If they don't want to do it, they don't have to. And then we tend to with a background as a therapist, like our monthly calls tend to be there's a lot of tears sometimes, and like a lot of like deep conversations, and it's almost never about running. But like that is like part of the work, I think. And then I also do courses or individual mental health mental endurance training, and those are very directed. So there's like a set curriculum, and we're going through like different stages of mental endurance and what that entails.
Something that we hear a lot is that people get very nervous around race day and have some race anxiety. Is there a general practice that you tell your athletes?
Well, there are some things where, like what's the underlying thing here? Like what's your core adult self-belief that's like coming up and like interfering with that? So like that's like the overarching thing that needs to be addressed. But in the moment, people normally want things that are like quick, resolvable, actionable skills that are not like something that they need to like delve deeply into over a long period of time. So inversions are like the fastest way to shift your emotional state. So like an inversion like downward dog or a headstand or just forward fold. It's the fastest way to like shift how you're feeling emotionally. So I would definitely recommend if you're starting to feel any like visceral anxiety, like at the start line or something, do an inversion.
What if you've never done yoga in your life?
Just bend over.
Can you demonstrate?
Literally just bend over. I will not demonstrate.
So I'm not going to lie, I love when I see graham crackers at all the races. Now I'm going to love if I see everybody doing inversions. So downward dog at the start. I mean, maybe we should start another trend. I don't know. I think it sounds good. Kind of along those same lines, is there like a mental tool that you wish?
Hold it over there. Yeah, how do you manage dealing with unplanned rest days? Because as a person who has like, Monday's my rest day, and if I feel terrible on a Wednesday, how do you mentally handle knowing that you're still making progress, but listening to your body at the same time?
That's a really good question too. I think initially when I first started being more serious about how I was training, I had way more unplanned rest days. And then when I became like more attuned to myself, I had less unplanned rest days because I kind of knew like what I was needing and like could listen to my body a little bit better. And initially I didn't know like what my body was telling me, it was like speaking a foreign language. So I would think that something that could have been just like a little niggle was like tendinitis or like was going to be a broken foot in a minute. And like, that's not really how things happen. But yeah, so I think like the unplanned situation and knowing that I'm making progress is like filling in the blanks with something else and making sure that I'm taking care of the little things on a day-to-day basis. And that like really stems from food and sleep. And if those things aren't happening, then I can't expect myself to like keep doing and moving like in the way that I have to take care of myself essentially. And for me, when I don't take care of myself, when my sleep is impaired or my food is impaired, it generally stems from like a self-care space or like a self-worth space where I'm prioritizing everything else before me. And like that has to always be like a red flag to me that like, oh shoot, like I haven't eaten in 4 hours, or like, oh, I just had to do this quick thing really fast and it would only take 2 minutes and now it's 5 o'clock and I haven't, taken care of myself at all today. And it's like whenever I start prioritizing other people or other things first, I know.
Hi. My name is Jackie. I consider myself a strength and conditioning expert. I'm a coach. That's been my jam for about 8 years now. But from one mommy to another, I'm pregnant right now with my second baby, 17 weeks as of Friday. So my question to you is, I just got into my runner girl era about 6.5 weeks ago because I'm training for High Rocks. So at race day, I'll be 23 weeks pregnant. But my question is, how would you, what advice would you give to like a pregnant athlete to help them protect, my core, pelvic floor, and joints so I can keep progressing and decreasing injury risk?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Like pregnant runners are incredible. And like we can really run, especially if you're doing strength training, which it sounds like you are, through pregnancy. And it's really just deciding like if you start feeling pelvic pain or any sort of like discomfort, responding to that before trying to push through and make it worse. But like hip strength is everything. Pelvic floor relaxation also, not just like the strength component, but like, you know, being able to get to a 0 and not just like be at a 2 all the time, like clenching, just like a little bit, you know. Definitely hip strength, pelvic floor stuff, and the core stuff. There are a lot of like diastasis safe regimens that you can find online too, and I'm sure you're well versed on all of that. And that stuff's really good like throughout pregnancy as well. Wall push-ups, great. I love those. And also like when I'm not pregnant too, because a regular push-up is really hard.
Thank you.
Okay, so on the same vein of putting yourself first, you're also a mother. I'm sure a lot of mothers in the room will say that it's very hard to put yourself first, and it's also very hard to accomplish the distances that that you are accomplishing as a mother. Just finding the time. Do you have any advice for parents who are juggling, trying to accomplish these physical goals that take a lot of time and training while also, you know, being present and there and not, you know, gone for 4 hours every evening on runs?
Yeah, I am very fortunate to have such a flexible work schedule in that I can go get a long run done on a weekday, which is not always possible for people. But when you start getting up into like 100K, 100-mile distances, I often have to do 2 long runs in a week. And so one of them often falls on the weekend. And so like having a supportive partner and a team around you is very necessary. There's a book called In a Different Voice by Carol Gilligan, and it's about, it's really a study on women, like a social scientist study, I guess. And she talks about how girls lose their voices as like adolescents or like 10 to 14-year-olds, and then we're like trying to get our voices back like for the rest of our lives basically, and like trying to figure out how to speak up for ourselves and like say what it is that we need. But like having a voice is implying that people are listening to you. You can't speak and have a voice if nobody hears you. So like making sure that the people around you also respect what it is that you need. And there are always ways. If something's important to you enough, you'll figure out how you need to get it done. And that may be going to bed really early and getting up really early, you know? And it sucks at first. And it always feels like this can't be the only way, but like sometimes that's the only way, you know? Sorry.
Just like try again.
Hi. So you're really smart, obviously. And I'm wondering, as someone who's like been through all this schooling, and also you are a coach of other people, and there's an internet of things. How are you as someone who like receives coaching, and how do you like take the coaching on this Team for Rabbit and also not be like, I can figure this all out on my own?
Oh, I am the most uncoachable person. Yeah. I am not coachable at all. I'm like self-coached right now because like I keep telling myself like I need to just have a coach because like I shouldn't be self-coached. I have blind spots. I'm not going to be able to see everything that I need, which is very true. I don't see everything that I need. But like every coach that I've had, I'm kind of like I find problems with it, you know? So I'm not a coachable person. It's a major flaw.
Okay, this is not related to motherhood or being a female runner, but I'm curious, what is the craziest thing you have witnessed out on the trails?
Ooh, the craziest?
Yeah, wildlife, people,
I've seen
anything.
plenty of bears in Georgia. Yeah, there was this like bear cub that was running, like bolting down a hill towards the trail where I was. And I was like, oh my God, what is that? That's like coming through the woods so fast. It was so agile. And it was like small, but it was still like a bear cub. And I was like, oh my God, is there going to be a mama bear like somewhere? And it stopped like dead in its tracks, like maybe 15 feet, 20 feet away from me. And it looked at me and I was like, oh, you're a you're a German Shepherd. Like you're not a you're not a bear at all. And then it turned its head and I was like, oh fuck, that's a bear. Like I was actually more nervous about it being a German Shepherd because I was like, what could a German Shepherd do to me, first of all, that's like roaming the woods, the wilderness free? And or like, do you have an owner who's like, is this dog hunting me right now? Like but yeah, I think that might be the wildest thing, I guess. I don't know.
So I have a question about your mental health coaching business and what that looks like. But I guess my question specifically is about coaching men versus women. So what are you finding with women that you spend time on or like more time on that is not something that you're addressing with men? Or maybe what is the biggest difference?
That is such a great question. It's interesting because when I first started coaching, I had primarily female athletes, and now I'm about 50-50, men and women. And I find that it really depends on the person. Like there isn't like a gender specific, like this is how people are. Although I do find that some of my older gentlemen have a very hard time changing their ways. And and with the older women tend to be more vocal about what it is that they want and need, instead of just like saying they'll do something and then not doing it. You know.
Allie, do you ever find yourself having to remind yourself of your own mental endurance tips and tricks, or do you sometimes like get lost in the anxiety and forget the rules of it all?
Yeah, I do. I tend to like I encourage my athletes and mental endurance clients to like reflect a lot and externalize that reflection, and I really don't do it myself and I should. Like I'll have thoughts and I don't externalize them, and so then it's really a lot more challenging for me to like put things together for myself, because I haven't like sort of like organized like the constellation of it all, you know. So I definitely need to remind myself to do that and like actually like hard copy reflect and not just like think about things, because like when it just exists in your mind, it's like not really that useful until it's like put outside of you and like you can then jigsaw puzzle everything together, you know.
Do you have any pre-race rituals for a mentally strong race?
Ooh, I love a good spreadsheet. Especially for longer races and just like identifying everything that I need to do. And that includes breaking down the course into different segments and putting like a keyword or like a mental state of like how I want to feel during each of those segments, and something that's like short enough for me to remember, and not like it's not sentences. It's just like one punchy word that's just like, this is how I'm going to be like during each stage of the race. And the stages of the race I normally break down by like what feels like an organic separation. So it's not, if it's a marathon, for instance, it's not necessarily by like distinct miles, but it's more like by a terrain shift or like something that like is really like noticeable in the course. And then it moves on to the next stage of the race.
I'm curious if you like listen to music or anything while you're doing your training runs, because I feel like if I'm running by myself, I listen to something, or I'm running with friends and chit-chatting, but then when it comes to the race, I'm just like thinking in my thoughts the whole time, and it becomes really challenging. And I wonder like how you should train for that, or if you just do it by practicing not listening to anything while you run.
Yeah, I used to be like such a hard ass about not listening to anything when I run, like ever. Like I was like, I need to like be mentally tough and whatever, just like face everything. And now I'm much more flexible. I think as I feel more secure in like what it is I'm trying to achieve, I like there are ebbs and flows where like sometimes I'm listening to something and sometimes I'm not. And if I notice that I'm like, I need my headphones, where are my headphones? Like I'm freaking out about it. I'm like, maybe that's a sign I shouldn't have my headphones today, you know? And sort of like giving myself rest from that. But I'm really into K-pop Demon Hunters right now. It's so good.
Okay, what the heck does mental endurance actually mean? I feel like we've used that phrase a lot,
And I understand like physical endurance, and I feel like I have mental endurance, but like maybe I don't.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you're alive. You do. It's there. All the tools that you need are inside you. um, no, it's like totally made up term. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just like resilience, right? Like just like keep going. Like how do you keep going? And we obviously all are always going. Like we just keep going. So it's sort of just like tapping into the like traits that you already have and not like turning a blind eye to the things that you already have. So and a lot of that begins with talking about fear and like what we fear and then how we've cultivated like self-belief. And sometimes we think about self-belief only in like a positive way of like this is how I believe in myself to accomplish something. But like we also cultivate like negative self-beliefs or like maladaptive self-beliefs. And so it's sort of like, I think figuring out what those are and then like finding the adaptive or like the preferred version of those and like trying to strengthen that side of things, because like you can never get rid of a negative self-belief. It's always going to be there, but you're sort of trying to like shrink it down and like find the more adaptive or like preferred self-belief and make that one bigger and like grow that one more. So that's sort of like the main focus, I think, in like the mental endurance courses that we do is like growing that side of yourself, you know?
Thank you so much for being here tonight with us, Allie. I think I'll speak for all of us. That I mean, people are taking notes with little tidbits here. Like there was a lot of good one-liners and longer liners from you tonight. So thank you so much for spending your time here, for being with us. Give her a round of applause.